Hello YouTube, Ian here of Bolt Industries. As promised, I'm going to make a series of videos on everything that I've learned about KiCAD. It's a pretty darn involved little printed circuit board design suite, and it's really great. I'm glad I decided to make the switch from Easy EDA to KiCAD. It's just so much better in every way. But anyway, this is going to be a multi-part series. I'll start with a schematic and we'll do some schematic symbols, how to make those, and how to make PCB footprints, and work up to designing an actual PCB, how to order it, and then since I have a whole surface mount assembly reflow line here in my office, I'll go through every step of that. And that'll also cover a little bit how you would go about ordering an assembled board from the board house if you wanted to do it that way, because I'm the only one I know that has a pick and place in their office. So yeah, with that, let's get into it. For this first video, I'm just going to give you an introduction to KiCAD and talk about the workflow and what it can and can't do. So this is KiCAD. I'm actually going to close it out just to show you that when you open it up, that's what it looks like. This is what you get. So this is a piece of art that I just finished. I just put in the order to the board house for this a few minutes ago. I'm stoked to see how it turns out. That'll be a big moment when it shows up in the mail. But anyway, so this is the home screen. The obvious first two things to point out, this is the board layout. Just like that. I'll talk more about that in a minute. And the schematic layout opened on the other screen. And this shows everything that's in that folder where this design lives. So there's this vector graphic that it's just easier to draw vectors in Inkscape and then import them into KiCAD, which is something that KiCAD does quite well. That's one of my favorite features about it, actually. So that vector graphic is there. That's why it turns up. Nothing will really happen when I click on it. It doesn't know what to do with it. So these menus along the top, it's pretty intuitive. Tools, that's where all our preferences, where you can change settings. Tools, these pretty much open the same things that these icons open here. The help menu, that's pretty self-explanatory. So let's say I wanted to start with a new design. I would just do File, New Project, and give it a name, but I'm not going to actually do that because I've got one here already. So once you do that, then you'll have a board layout and a schematic layout here. And then we can open those by pressing those icons over there, or I can double click on it here. So generally speaking, the way that this works, if you want to make a board with KiCAD, the first step is to draw a schematic, which often includes drawing some schematic symbols if KiCAD doesn't already have them. Or usually there's a library out there that you can import. Somebody else has already done the hard work for you, but nonetheless, I'll make a video down the road covering how to make schematic symbols and how to make board footprints. So assuming you've got all the footprints you need, you draw a schematic, you get all the footprints you need, connect them in the right ways, and make all your connections, and then convert to a board layout. There's this icon right here I just clicked to switch to the board layout. You're probably wondering what the heck this thing is. So my artwork is, if you look at it, you'll notice there's always a natural element, which in this case is this human brain and the outline of this human face, and an element of technology, which is all this back here. And the concept of the singularity absolutely fascinates me. If you're not familiar with that, Google it. And in a nutshell, what it is the prediction that artificial intelligence is going to exceed human intelligence in the very near future, if it hasn't already, some people would argue. And it'll become rapidly self-evolving. And then the pace of evolution of technology becomes absolutely exponential from there. And it'll be totally self-driven, and what the future holds is a big unknown. Some people are afraid of it. Some people think it's going to be good. I don't know what the truth is, but I do think we can agree on one thing. It is fascinating. So that's what inspires a lot of my artwork. So This says the singularity is coming. There is no way to stop it. There is no way to turn back. The only question is what we will become. In binary, that's what that says. If you were to hold your phone up to that and upload it to your favorite LLM, it would probably be able to decrypt it. Whoops, that was the wrong button. I'm going to hit the 3D render. There, that's what this thing will actually look like when it's done. I'm super stoked to see how it turns out. But anyway, back to where we left off. I'm going to go back to this main menu here. We've got the schematic editor, where we draw schematics, and the PCB editor. The symbol editor, that's where you would draw a schematic symbol if you don't already have one that suits your needs. I think honestly I have yet to draw one in KiCAD, but if you wanted to draw one from scratch, that's how you would do it. I guess if I had a really exotic old rare vintage LED or a Nixie tube or something like that, maybe I would draw a schematic, but probably what you need is already out there and you don't need to do this. Same thing with footprints. I'll go into the footprint editor. It's worth a whole nother video another time, but what I've found is that I get all my parts from lcsc.com. Even after tariffs, they are just cheaper by a landslide, and it's faster, to be honest, than the domestic parts houses. So they have a really nice symbol library. You don't have to beat around the bush too much to find a symbol for any part that they have. So what I do is I open those in Easy EDA, export them as a JSON, and then import them into here. And I don't draw any symbols really, very rarely. You can organize your symbols into libraries. You'll notice these three are starred up here. I've got pin headers starred just because I use that a lot, and that makes it easier to find. And custom components. These are things that I've drawn or imported. These are probably all imported. I don't know, I've probably drawn one along the way, but I can't remember which one. That TIL311, possibly I drew that. But anyway, they're organized into libraries, so if I wanted to, if anybody wanted it, I guess I could export this custom components library and then you could import it into your KiCAD. And there's libraries out there on GitHub that you can import. And all of these are just built into KiCAD by default, which is nice because really they've got everything you need. No idea what that is. Some kind of micro USB. A crystal. Anyway, unless it's really exotic, any component you need really is already in there. The Gerber viewer, this is kind of handy. It's a pet peeve of mine when somebody uploads their Gerber file to the internet and says their design is open source. Well, no, it's not, because you can't modify a Gerber. But KiCAD, it has this cool function to open a Gerber and view it, and then you can actually export as a board file. I forget how to do it. There, export to PCB editor right there. So you can actually convert a Gerber into a PCB layout that you can change. It's going to be lacking a schematic and any libraries for the footprints, but it's a start anyway. If you wanted to modify a Gerber or help take a symbol out of it or dissect it to reverse engineer it, this would be a good place to, or a good way to get started. This image converter, this is kind of cool. Like I said, I'm an Easy EDA convert, and converting images was not something that Easy EDA did so well. Most of the images that I would want to import are in a vector, which there's a different way to do that through the board editor, which I'll show you in another video another day. But if it's not a vector graphic, this is a great way to import a JPEG or a different kind of image. I'm not sure which formats this works with, to be honest, but I think you've got a lot more controls here over how the picture comes out looking on the board in whatever layer you put it in. So, handy tool. These calculator tools, this is just plain cool. I'll be honest, I haven't used most of these yet, but this track width calculator, I find this to be really handy. You can put in the conductor length and how much temperature rise you're willing to allow, the current that you need to move, and you will get the track width down here Oh, you also need to know the track thickness. I would get that from JLC-PCB's website. I think that's probably their default right there, 0.035 millimeters, unless that's a default value. I can't remember. I'd have to check. But anyway, in my days of easy EDA, I would often just take a wild guess and make a track nice and big when it needs to carry some current, and that pretty much always worked for me. But this is a little bit more methodical rather than just plain guessing and making it as big as you can. There's other cool calculators in here too. Oh, I haven't seen this before. This is for an L78, whatever the last two numbers are, for a variable voltage regulator, I guess, to figure out the output voltage you want. That's totally useful. Anyway, all kinds of good stuff in there. This drawing sheet editor, I have yet to have a reason to mess with that, but if you wanted to change this default border thing on a schematic sheet, I guess you would use this to do that. And this one is cool, this plugin and content manager. I don't know if KiCAD is written in, I would guess Python probably, or maybe Java, I'm not sure, I'm not a programmer, but anyway, it must be pretty dang easy to make these plugins to go in to add on to KiCAD, because there's a bunch of them here that are written by third parties, and there's some cool stuff in here. There's one I'm looking for, I'm probably scrolled past it. That KiMotor, I'm itching to try that. A PCB motor parametric design and layout tool, how cool is that? I haven't seen a PCB motor winding since taking apart floppy drives back in the 90s as a kid, but I'm sure I could find a use for that. A keyboard footprint placer to lay out a keyboard. I could have used that when I made my Pico 87 keyboard. You might have seen that one on Kickstarter. I use this fabrication toolkit. There is a way that's native in KiCAD to export a Gerber file over to Easy EDA, or to KiCAD. No, that's a mouthful. For JLC PCB, that's what I'm trying to say. You can export a Gerber natively, and before I figured out how to do that, I found this, and this seems to just work. It's just a seamless way to generate a Gerber to upload to JLC PCB. The other way probably works, but I haven't tried it. Somebody tell me in the comments what your experience is. I've seen in Facebook groups in the past people using KiCAD that have with a board that has an oval-shaped footprint, or an oval-shaped hole in a footprint, and they send it off to JLC PCB and they get back a little tiny round hole where they were expecting a big oval-shaped hole, and they're wondering what happened. So I'm wondering if maybe this addresses that problem. I've seen that happen quite a lot, actually. Something about the way KiCAD exports those ovals in JLC PCB doesn't read them right. I have yet to encounter that myself, but it wouldn't surprise me, and I kind of suspect this is the fix. But anyway, there's all kinds of cool stuff in here. So that's the lay of the land in KiCAD. I think for next week's video we'll talk about schematic editor and possibly how to edit symbols. That kind of, the two go hand in hand. Highly recommend giving KiCAD a try if you're thinking about learning how to make your own PCBs. I wouldn't give Easy EDA the time of day, and there's probably other good ones out there, but I can't say that I've tried them. But KiCAD is really darn cool because it's an open source, community driven project, and it's a really robust board editor. I have yet to find something that it doesn't do that I would want. It's just loaded with features, things that I would never need. So we'll see you again next week for Schematic Editor, and thanks for watching. If you made it this far, please don't forget to like and subscribe.